It's such an honor and a privilege to be a part of your journey to help you understand the process of design and how it can help build your business as a wedding planner, as an event designer, as a florist or a decor or a rental company. One of the things that people will say to me all the time is, yeah, but I don't live in a big city, or I don't work with $1 million clients. Maybe this doesn't apply to me. Well, newsflash, nobody starts with $1 million clients. There is a process and a life cycle to your business, to your own journey, to your professional development, both as a business and your development as an artist. And I really want to share with you a little bit about my process because I understand that nobody starts here. I didn't start here. I didn't wake up and say, I'm going to start my business and immediately be the person, the professional, and the artist with the worldview that I have today. And so I really want to share with you how I got here, what I did, the steps that I took, and more importantly, how long it took to become an overnight success. So if you've been around, you may have heard this, but when I was 13, my father's cousin was killed unexpectedly right before his daughter's sweet 16. And for Italians from Long Island, from New York, a sweet 16 is the biggest deal. It's the most important thing that you're doing. It's your miniature wedding. And the family decided that his daughter's sweet 16 would move forward. It was only like 6 or 8 weeks after his passing. And they decided that they were going to still have the party. And so this was the 80s. I'm in the back of the car with, my sister and my brother and my mom, and everyone's dressed, and there's Aquanet and big poofy bows and the whole 9 yards. My parents are up front in the car talking. And I said, I can't believe we're doing this. I can't believe that she's having a birthday party because I couldn't conceive of a world where you would lose your dad and be able to do something like that. And my own father kind of adjusted the rearview mirror and he looked at me and he goes, honey, years from now, when the sting of losing him wears off, and it'll wear off, this is the thing she's going to remember. This party is the last gift that her father ever gave her. The memory of going to pick the hall, the memory to go and buy her dress, the food tasting. Those are the things that she's going to remember. And the party's probably the only thing she's had to look forward to over these last couple of weeks and months. And that's why we do things like this. Because in life, when bad things happen, and bad things always happen, you need something to look forward to and you need something to look back on. And I felt stupid because I was like, oh, I heard him, but I didn't understand until we were sitting in that room and the drapes opened and she had been backlit and she walked in to the ballroom and everybody is on their feet and everybody is clapping and the lights are moving and there's haze in the room and the music is going and there's flowers and she walked by me and she smiled. And I had such an incredibly visceral reaction to this. I didn't have the words, I didn't have the language to verbalize it. But what I understood was that if you take a room and you fill it with people and things that you love, if you have the right lighting and the right music and the right sounds and the right pieces, you can change your story. You can change the experience. You can create and manipulate emotion. You took a girl who had been mourning the unexpected death of her father, and for that moment, she was happy. Even if it was bittersweet, there was joy. And so the way that I interpreted that, the way that I processed it, was I said, well, I too want a party. And I immediately went home and I started planning my own Sweet 16. And this is before the World Wide Web. This is before the internet. And so I had a 3-ring binder and I used to cut out pictures of magazines and of dresses, and there was no Sweet 16 magazine, so I bought bridal magazines, and I tried to imagine centerpieces and invitations and what would I serve and how would it be. And I carried this binder around for years. And then right before my 16th birthday, when I was still 15, a friend's mother grabbed it and she goes, "What is this that you're always carrying around?" And she like flipped through it and she looked at me and she handed it back and she said, "You should be a wedding planner." And I said, "No, I'm going to be a lawyer. I'm going to go to law school." And she laughed and she said, "No, you're not. You're going to be a wedding planner." And she gave me a job at a wedding trade show, and I was the greeter. And my job was when people came in, I had to push the button and rewind the VHS tape all the way to the beginning, and couples would come in and they would watch it, and then they would walk around this empty showroom. And it was empty because all the vendors were actually doing weddings on Saturdays and Sundays. But they would walk around and they would look at, pick up pamphlets for limos and florists and catering companies. And they started coming over and asking me questions. And I was like, I don't know. They're like, "What's that purplish gray rose called?" I don't I don't know. I'm 15. "How many people can fit in a limo?" I'm so sorry. I actually don't know. "Do you like the food over at I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know." The whole time I felt like such an idiot and I was sure that I was going to be fired. And so I took that day's paycheck, the cash that she gave me, and I begged my father to take me to the bookstore, and I bought Wedding Planning for Dummies and I bought all sorts of magazines and I taught myself how to be a wedding planner. And I told my parents, I'm not actually going to law school. I want to move to Las Vegas because it's the wedding capital of the world. And I want to go to UNLV and I want to be a wedding planner. And I got here and I thought, "Oh, I am going to have the Rat Pack and Elvis and Marilyn Monroe and women dressed in jewels and fur stoles." And instead, I got fanny packs and coolers and people looking for 99-cent shrimp cocktail. And I said, this is not this isn't what I wanted. It's not where I thought I was going to be. It's not where I wanted to go. And I showed up at UNLV and I met with my school counselor and he said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And I said, "I want to be a wedding planner." And he goes, "Put you in catering." And I said, "No, I don't want to be in catering. I want to be a wedding planner." And he looked at me and he goes, "That's not a job." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. There's this woman in New York who's now a friend of mine." And I was like, "She's doing it. And there's a lot of celebrities. I really think it's going to be a thing. I really want to be a wedding planner." And he kind of goes, and he put me in catering because there was no place else to put me. Because back in 1995, not much unlike today, the idea of being a wedding planner or an event designer today is more widely accepted. It is sexier. We've had movies about it. We've had people featured. We've seen magazines. It's a lot more understood. But there still is very little education. And the problem with that is I went through school thinking someday I can be a wedding planner and I can own my own business. And when I said wedding planner, what I meant was event designer. I didn't want to be a regular planner. I didn't want to just be an order taker. I didn't want to just do the logistics. I wanted to create. I wanted to design. I wanted to manipulate space and light and emotion and texture and color. And I wanted to create something that made people feel something. I wanted to take the sometimes very ugly underbelly of the world that I personally had lived through and seen and experienced and swam through, and I wanted to karmically offset it by creating something beautiful. As a designer, I stand on the sidelines and I am Oz behind the curtain and I am pulling all of the levers and I'm making other people's dreams come true. We are the dreamers and the seekers and the visionaries, and we're the custodians of people's memories. And by making something and building something and delivering an experience and saying, "I made this for you, I designed it, this didn't exist before." In some way, I feel like I'm karmically offsetting all of the other stuff and I get a tremendous amount of joy from that. I get to rewrite my own history, my own narrative. I get to make the world a prettier place. And I think as an artist, that's a big driving force. If you're watching this, it's because you want the world to be a more beautiful place, not just for yourself, but for your community, for the people that you interact with, for your family, for your colleagues. It's so important, especially now more than ever. And I don't know if you're going to watch this in 2 days after it launches or if you're going to watch it in 5 years. But the one thing that I can tell you, just from being a person on the planet, is that there's always going to be hard. Hard is hard. There's always going to be difficult. There's always going to be stuff that is hurt. And our job is to stand on our postage size stamp of the universe and say, I don't care how ugly it is. I don't care how hard it is. I don't care about any of the things that are going on in the world. Joy is important. Beauty is important. Telling stories of humanity, creating benchmark moments that go from generation to generation. These are the things, especially with AI coming down, especially with technology, especially post pandemic when we're not all together the way that we always were. These are the moments that connect us to each other. These are the moments that make us human. These are the moments that make everything else worth it. These are the things that you look forward to and the things that you look back on. That's the lesson that my father was trying to teach me. And if there's nothing else that you get, I hope that's one of the things that you get from this, is that our jobs are so vitally important because we create the opportunity for people to have things to look forward to and things to look back on. Now, when I started, in my head, of course I wanted to do big, beautiful weddings. Of course, there was a part of me was like, I'd love to do these. I didn't even understand. I had no concept of what it would cost to build an atrium on the top of a mountain. I had no idea of what it would cost to floor support chandeliers. I didn't even know that those things were things. And maybe that's where you are today. Or maybe you are 5 years into your business and you're finally getting to a place and a point where you're sitting with clients who do have more money and who do have the ability and who do have the desire to create something other, but you're just not sure how. We don't talk about that enough in our industry. We don't talk about our own personal processes and journeys. And I don't know why, because I think that one of the best things that we can do is learn with each other and learn from one another. And so I want to tell you and explain to you how I got from just a name on the internet that somebody would really need to stumble upon accidentally to where I'm sitting today and why it allows me to teach you and to inspire you and to take you on this journey so that you can someday sit here and pay it forward and give back. I think one of the most disheartening moments was when I sat there at college at UNLV and I was told this thing that you love isn't real. It's not a job. And then I started my business and I looked around and there was no place to go for help. There wasn't, organizations. There wasn't the internet. There weren't these places and these people that could teach us. And I used to look at my husband and say, if I ever know anything worth sharing, I really hope that I get to a place in a position where I can help the next generation move forward. So let's take you through the life cycle of an event planner, of a wedding designer, of the business so that you can understand the exact steps that I took to get here. If you want to deep dive more into it, you can always go back and read Redefining Your Wedding Business. It's how to build the business you want wherever you are, at whatever time in your life you are. But I want to give you the specific process that I went through. So when I first started, much like everybody else, things I didn't have. I didn't have a website. I didn't have a portfolio. I didn't have referrals. I didn't have even social media back then, didn't exist. All I had was a desire to create things, was a pull to tell love stories, and a belief that I could make the world a prettier place. And so I built a website, very simple, basic, The first thing I did was I put an ad on the Knot and Wedding Wire, and then I crossed my fingers and I prayed. And I said, God, I hope someone finds me and I hope that they like me. But if they show up and I don't have anything to share, what do I do? So I started blogging. And every single day, because I went from being an executive director and a vice president to really being like small business owner overnight. And I wanted to have a structure to my day, especially because I was working home. My son was young. I was like, all right, what am I going to do? I'm going to wake up every day and I'm going to blog. And while that may sound really tedious, the reality is that if you are passionate, if you are obsessed, if you love this industry like I know you do, then you always have something to say. And so I got up at 5:30, 6 a.m. and I sat down and I said, what do I want to say today? And I didn't have a plan because I didn't think that far in advance. Hopefully you have a plan, but I didn't know what I was going to talk about. I hadn't yet developed a list of topics, but I would sit down and say, okay, what do I want to say about being a wedding planner today? What do I want to say about flowers today? What do I want to say about cake today? And every day I wrote, and I just put these blogs up because I had this need to create. I had stuff in my mind and in my heart and in my soul. I was like, I have to get this out there. I have to give people an opportunity to get to know me and to understand who I am and to understand how I see the world and to see if we align. So I immediately started creating content. Then I went out and I went to the venues and I said, hi, we may know each other already because I was a director over here. I opened this property. I know these people. I just want to let you know that I have finally opened up my own wedding and event planning business, and this is what I'm doing, and this is what I can offer you. So if there's any way that I can ever perhaps be of service to you, of your clients, of anything like that, please let me know. So I introduced myself to the community. And then I went to mixers, especially and specifically back then it was NACE. And I said, I just want to meet other wedding professionals. And I took a really big interest in their companies. And I said, oh, you make videos? Can I come and sit and watch how you edit? Oh, you do flowers? Can I come in and watch how you make a bouquet? Can I watch how you make a boutonniere? If you have all these extra flowers and I need something last minute, would you be able to do another boutonniere? And I got really, really involved in understanding how the businesses that I would be interacting with that were supporting my vision, how did they work? How did they operate? And very, very quickly, I got my first lead. And when they called, I said, they wanted to do a luxury high-end elopement, just the two of them. They said, we want to elope. It's not a big deal. And I said, okay, great. Talk to me about why. And I just asked question, why Las Vegas? Why are you eloping? Why now? Why this time of year? Why this time of month? Do you have a dress? Have you thought about your fashion? What do we want to tell people? Are people going to know? Are you going to announce it? And I just became so incredibly interested in who they were. And I said, okay, and these are real numbers. I said, it would be an honor to do this for you. It's going to be $1,500. And the bride came back the next day and she said, I have to be honest with you, just for two people, like there's no reception, there's no this, $1,500 is a lot. And I've spoken to two other wedding planners and they're willing to do it for $750. Would you be willing to do it for less? Could we make a deal? And I said no, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I'd sat down and I had said, I know I need to make X amount of money just to feel like a business. But there was something I said, no, I appreciate that they may be willing to do it for $750, but I'm not. So my price will be $1,500. And she said, but why? And I said, because I'm the best wedding planner in Las Vegas. And she was like, aren't you new? I said, I am. She's like, well, then what makes you the best? I said, who says I'm not the best? I said, with everything that we talked about. And then I told her back her story. For somebody who cares about intimacy, for somebody who cares about one-on-one personal contact, for somebody who wants to be able to tell this story, for somebody who wants, I have already paid attention to you. I've already seen you. I already understand who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. I can tell a better story for you and your fiance. And that story can be told again and again and again. In this moment, at this time, nobody can give you what I'm going to give you. And I am the best, and I'm worth the 1500. And if you disagree, then I'm not your planner. And she booked me. And the minute that I got that check, I was no longer a hobbyist. I was a professional now. I was making money doing the thing that I loved. And that idea of I am always the best for the person who shares my worldview. I am always the best for the person who cares about what I care about. I learned that when I opened the Bellagio and Mr. Wynn spent millions and millions of dollars telling the world that the Bellagio was the most exquisite luxury hotel and resort that had ever been built, and the world believed him. And so I took that and I applied it to my wedding business. And now that I have a client and now that I'm going out there in the world, the next thing for me was to say, okay, well, now I have this client. What do I want to do? How do I want to make things better? And so I started studying and looking at all of those businesses because one client led to two, led to three. And I had identified the businesses that I really, really wanted to work with. And I sat them down and I said, okay, here's the deal. I want to redefine what it means to get married in Las Vegas. I want to do bigger work, better work, more opulent work, more over the top, everything. I wanted to do the kind of events that I had been raised with in, my Italian American experience back in New York, where everything was over the top, where everything was about glamour, everything was about, opulence and glitz, and the bigger the moment, the better the memory. I wanted to do that, and that wasn't really happening in Las Vegas, and it certainly wasn't happening with somebody who was brand new. So I said, here's what I'm willing to do. If you will partner with me on these events as the wedding planner, I will take 15% of whatever my clients pay me, and I will reinvest it in the design. And design isn't just how something looks, it's how it feels, it's how it works, it's the entire experience. I will reinvest 15% of whatever it is that I get. But I'm going to ask you to give me 15% of extra whatever. For a florist, it meant 15% extra flowers that we together can sit down and say, what are we going to do with this? For a rental company, the 15% may have been chargers or upgraded glassware. For a stationery company, 15% may have been printed napkins. But we are all going to contribute a little bit to making the wedding better, to making the wedding more expensive. So when I had a client who had a $30,000 budget for the entire wedding for 125 people, and that was my first full wedding, they actually came to me with a $20,000 to $25,000 budget. I charged $5,000, and that meant that we were at a $30,000 spend. Out of my $5,000, I said, okay, 15% is $750. What can I get for $750 that makes this better, that makes it special? And I decided that I really wanted an aisle runner, which the couple didn't want to pay for at the time. And I really wanted this kind of we were going to do some flowers at the very top of the aisle at the altar, but I wanted them to be elevated and I wanted them to be in a very specific vase. So I went to the florist and I said, I will pay for this. And she was like, great, I'll also contribute this. So now we were able to make the flowers look a little bit better. I had a little bit of extra money. We were giving out little favors, and I went to my stationery company and I was like, hey, is there any way that maybe, how much would you charge me if I wanted to do personalized tags for all of the favors? Now, you're sitting here saying, like, why are you spending your own money? I'm not spending my money on the client. I'm spending the money on my work. It was a marketing expense. It was an investment in the work to make the work look better. And when the company and the stationery partner that I had said, oh, yeah, we can do that for you, I was like, great. Do you think that I could also get 10 custom menus. Just 10 custom menus. This is what I want them to look like. Here's the price. They said yes. So now what did I do? I had the menus only at the head table. And when I had pitched custom menus to my couple, they were like, the venue prints menus. Well, the venue's printing menu on white paper. They're using a paper cutter. They're cutting it in half. That's not design. That's not beautiful. It's not romantic. It's not elegant. It's not what I want my work to be. But the client didn't want to pay for it. And so I got just enough of them, just 10, so that when the photographer came in, I said, okay, shoot this place setting. This is the one I want you to shoot because this one has the upgraded flowers behind it. This one has the custom menu. This one has the specialty tag. And that's what I used to elevate my content. Because people like us do things like this. The next time a client called, I didn't even ask whether or not they wanted to invest in menus. I simply said, okay, now we need to discuss your menus. And they were like, doesn't the venue just give them to us? I was like, well, yeah, but obviously we're going to do our own. I mean, look, my other clients did it. Look how beautiful, look how special. And then people, oh, okay, you're right. Because now they've seen the thing. Now they understand how different it feels. I also had photos of place settings without the menu. And when I was able to show future clients, this is what it looks like without the custom menu. This is what it looks like with the menu. Once you see something, you can't unsee it. Once you know, you can't unknow it. And so I sat down and I said, what are the things that I really want to show in my work? I want to show beautiful escort cards. I wanted to show beautiful menus. I wanted big centerpieces. I wanted statement making pieces, especially at the entry. I wanted to show people engagement photos because I think it's so important that couples have an opportunity to get comfortable with their photographer in advance. And then I went and I showed my partners that I wasn't simply asking for comps or upgrades with no value. I was able to say, first of all, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is. I'm going to pay. It's a marketing expense because I believe that the work is worth it. Number two, it was an investment in creating content. And when the teams saw that I was willing to go that extra mile for the work, they were willing to go the extra mile. And so together we took a $30,000 budget and we brought it up to $39,000, $40,000. That's a huge jump. That's a 25% increase in deliverables. So that's how I was able to make the work look and feel bigger and more lush and more important at a time when I didn't necessarily have the budgets. But showing that I could take a $30,000 wedding and make it look like a $40,000 wedding. Then let me take a $40,000 wedding and say, okay, $40,000, I'm still investing $750 of my own money. The couple is now willing to pay for the menus. The couple is now willing to pay for the custom tags. The couple is now willing to pay for the altar piece. What do I want to spend my $750 on? What do I want to invest in the work? And the next one was, I really want a I want a crazy cake. I want a wedding cake that is the jewelry of a reception because I want to attract clients who feel like that moment when they're standing there next to the cake is so special. And on and on and on. And it took me about a year and a half to go from a place where I was doing $30,000 and $40,000 weddings to a place where I was doing $50,000 and $60,000 weddings. Between years 2 and 5, I was pushing that budget and saying, okay, from 50, can I get them to 75? From 75, can I get them to 80? Can I push to 85? Can I get close enough? And slowly but surely, every time my design work got better, every time I was able to create something more beautiful, I increased my cost, my price for my art. Why? Because every single time I did a wedding, I got better. Every single time I did a wedding, I had more visuals. Every time I did a wedding, I was able to tell a better story. I had more technical experience. I had more content. And so as I grew in my art, as I grew in my practice, as I got better, as I did deeper work for other clients, I became more valuable to the process. And by raising my own price, I was able to then show people price is an indicator of quality. I'm always going to be expensive. I'm always going to be more expensive than the other planners and designers you're talking to in this particular space. Why? Because I really want to set myself apart as the best. I also want to set the tone in the very, very beginning for the fact that this experience is an investment, and that if a client wants quality, they need to be willing to invest in it from the beginning in every single place. Now, a budget is just a list of priorities with a number attached, but I wanted to be very important to my clients. I wanted them to understand and respect the fact that I was the expert in the room. And so I always pushed my price to be a little bit higher than what the rest of the market was. Because when people came and they saw that difference, they were like, "Ooh, do I want to pay her another $1,000? Do I want to spend another $1,500 on her versus this other planner?" But then I had all of this great work. Then I had work that showed things that other planners didn't. I was able to communicate the value and what it meant and how it made you feel, and how, yes, that napkin matters. Yes, I believe that that colored light matters because that light is going to change the way you're going to feel in this room, and it matters. And I had a language and the ability to communicate in a way that the other planners didn't always. And I invested in my own self and my education. I have no problem in saying that in the last 15 years, I have spent well over $150,000, $200,000 in my own professional development. And that's why I'm so glad that you're here, because every time I go out and learn, I'm able to then teach. I'm able to take what I've learned from designers, take what I've learned from color theory, take what I've learned from lawyers and business coaches and marketing experts, and filter it through specifically to what matters in our industry. Because there's a ton of people out there that are talking and that are educating. But what are you really learning? And how are you learning? What I love about being an educator is that I'm in the trenches with you. I've been where you are today. I struggled. I remember the first time I got that client that said, "I'm going to spend $100,000 on a wedding." And I came home and I looked at my husband and was like, $100,000. They're going to spend $100,000 on a wedding. I couldn't afford to spend $100,000 on a wedding, but I was invited into these people's lives, and I was trusted because every time I did work, it built on the work I did before it. And so that's what I want to give you, is the ability to understand the design elements, so that as you are investing in your business, as you are trying to get bigger, as you're trying to get better, that you have a foundational understanding of design. That I hope you're investing in your own business. I hope you're investing in your own work. This isn't to make up for the thing the client doesn't care about. It's to turn around, especially when you're building your reputation and your business, and saying, "I believe that this piece is going to be instrumental in changing the way that my work is perceived." And so maybe you don't give it to the entire wedding. Maybe you only get a sample and you use it for the photographer, and that's what ends up on your website. But it's about creating elements, taking pieces, putting them together in a really unique way that tells a very specific story, not just about your clients, because that's the story. You're telling your client's story for them to all of their friends and family. But as an artist and as a business, we're also telling our own story. We're telling a story that stationery matters. Printed pieces matter because there's information, there's art, there's beauty, there's texture, there's color. People are going to hold it in their hand. It's what's going to excite them and move them through the process. That sound matters, that light matters, whatever it is that matters to you as an artist. This is your opportunity to go out and share it. And so when I got that first $100,000 client, I made damn sure that every single solitary thing was buttoned up. I spent every dollar and stretched it to make it look like I was spending two. I repurposed things where I took the flowers that were going to be down the aisle, and afterwards we picked them up and we moved them and we put them in front of the stage. Why? Because I was able to buy it once and use it twice. I was able to extend the livelihood and the impact of those elements. I started flipping rooms saying, well, if I'm going to drape this room one time, yeah, I'll have some extra labor, but I've already draped it. So let's do the ceremony and the reception in here. I found people and creatives and businesses who saw the world the way that I did, who wanted to do the kind of work that I wanted to do. And for those first 5 years, we hustled and grinded and we built something that Las Vegas hadn't yet seen. And then we stopped and we looked, and I said, okay, I went from here to here. I want to go all the way over here. And some of the people I was working with at the time didn't necessarily want to go on that journey with me. And that's okay. They don't have to. There are no hard feelings. There's no drama. It's not hurt. It's you're happy with the business as you have it. And I want to do something new. And so once again, I had to go out and study other businesses and find new partners and find new vendors and new collaborators. As I grew as an artist and as a business, I had to shift and find other businesses, newer partners, newer venues that were able to support the next version of my career. And it is very much about a snake shedding its skin and getting bigger and growing, but it's never about disrespecting the prior work. I'm so incredibly proud of that first initial elopement that I did because it was revolutionary at the time. Before the world ever heard of luxury elopements, before the word heard of, micro weddings, that wedding ended up in the New York Times as a trend of having these super high-end amazing elopements. And I loved it. And I'm so proud of it. Equally proud, just as proud as doing a $4 million wedding in Lake Tahoe for clients who could have anything and who still invited me into their lives and who respected me as an expert and who said, we trust you. Go ahead and tell our story. And that's what I want for you as a designer. That's the process of going out and studying. I want you to really understand who you are as an artist. I want you to think a lot about the kind of business that you want to run because I got to tell you, not everybody wants to do a $4 million wedding. Not everybody wants to operate the way that I operate. Not everybody wants to work. Some people want to work 15, 20 times a year. Some people want to work 3. And wherever you fall on that spectrum, it's okay. It's about you designing the business that you want to run. It's about you attracting clients who see the world the way that you see it. And it's really about you as an artist being able to say, I am the best at telling this kind of story for this kind of person. And these are the tools that I have that allow me to communicate in that manner. So in this design masterclass, we're going to talk about a lot of different things. We're going to talk about different elements like texture, like color, like tonality, like space and scale. I'm going to walk you through the difference between imitation, inspiration, and creation. I'm going to show you exactly what my design process is, and then I'm going to take you behind the scenes and I'm going to let you watch me pitch a multi-million dollar wedding so that you can understand the process of presentation. None of this is intended to have you go out and say, I'm going to be the next Andrea Eppolito. I'm going to be the next whoever. You deserve more than that. Your clients deserve more than that. Don't go out and be the next anyone, least of all me. Go out and figure out who you are. Plant your flag and say, I'm willing to die on this hill as a designer, as a business, and I have the ability to create something. You out there, whoever you are, wherever you're sitting, you're going to create something that I couldn't possibly create because I don't live in your shoes. I don't walk through the world the way that you do. I don't have the same experiences. And so I can't tell the stories that you can tell. Just like you can't tell the stories that I can tell. And that's what makes this so special. That's what makes this so intimate, so artistic, so human. It's what makes wedding planning and event design a practice instead of a profession, because we are never experts. We're never done. We are sponges who are always taking things in from the world. We are always processing it through our filter, and we're always giving it back, hopefully in a way where people will see it and say, this moment, this room, this space changed my life. And it made me feel alive, and it gave me a sense of joy and happiness and completion. And it showed me that this is how I don't want to feel this way for just tonight. I want to feel this way every day. And so tomorrow when I get home, I'm going to light a candle during dinner. I'm going to play some music while I'm working. I'm going to do things to elevate the human experience. And that's how we inspire people through our art. That's how we take one night and we extend the life of it for our couples, for our clients, for their guests, and for each other. So please go out and study the work of other people. Please go out and get intimately involved with the businesses that are going to support yours. Take the time to get to know your clients. Stand very firm in your pricing, because you know that you've done the work to command that level of payment. And always keep reinvesting. Always keep pushing the needle. And if there's something that you feel strongly about, not that your clients just won't pay for and you're being a doormat, but if there's something that you really want to create, then go ahead and create it, whether it's for a styled shoot or for your clients or just for yourself. Because every time you create something, you do make the world a more beautiful place and you sharpen your skills. And that is the journey we are going to continue on in this Design Masterclass. Thanks so much for trusting me. Thank you for inviting me into your business and into your life. I promise you these next few hours are going to be very worth it.